the biggest threat to our democracy? Well, it's not potentially nuclear weapons on the Korean Peninsula. It isn't even foreign interference in our elections. Nope. The biggest threats to our democracy are the 24-hour content cycle and social media. Now, this has nothing to do with whether you believe news is fair or fake. It's got everything to do with confusing news with theater, truth with agenda setting, and the damage that does to our thought process, our way of life, and our democracy. Now, notice I said content and not news. News, well, that's noteworthy information reported free of bias. Content, words that anybody can write, free from the constraints that journalists have traditionally placed on themselves. Seek truth and report it. That is a journalist and a journalism organization's highest calling. Now, at the risk of sounding like my parents, let's go back to the good old days. We'll call it right around 1980, when the first 24-hour news channel launched. Back then, Americans got their news in limited ways, right? Radio, newspapers, and pretty much the three network news shows on ABC, CBS, and NBC. Back then, we had some of the titans of journalism, like Walter Cronkite and David Brinkley and John Chancellor, giving us that important, noteworthy information of the day. They were so well trusted, that the Gallup organization did a poll that showed about 50% of Americans had at least a fair amount of trust in the media, and another 19% had a high amount of trust. Now ask yourself this: who do you trust? We've gone from those three network news shows to content all day, every day. It makes it very, very difficult to determine what's news and what's simply theater to drive audience and drive revenue. It makes it very difficult to determine what's true. For example, one moment, you'll have a reporter standing up, giving you that newsworthy, noteworthy information of the day. The next moment, you'll see that same reporter sitting behind an anchor desk, grilling someone with a point of view in mind. I mean, think about this. Quality needs downtime. We can't stay up for 24 hours a day. We can't even plow our fields for 24 hours a day because we would kill the ground and the crops that grow from it. But somehow, in some way, we have a 24-hour content cycle that has now given us this. Roughly 6 in 10, actually more than 6 in 10 Americans, believe the news media is biased. Fewer than 3 in 10 Americans say they can differentiate fact from fiction in the news. Now, why is that? It's because of all this point of view. We get lots of point of view now, followed just by snippets of news, and then panels that debate an issue based upon their agenda in mind. So what's happened is politicians, talking heads, the public at large, begins to gravitate towards those content channels that they want to hear. And what that does is it creates tribalism. It creates a culture in which nobody wants to hear views that are different from their own. It creates a culture in which clear, reasoned, logical thought has been replaced by incivility, and therefore we have no way to come together and try to reach agreement on the common issues that benefit us all. That tribalism often extends to the social network of friends that we keep. If you think the way that I think, and I will argue, that often leads to if you look the way that I look, if you hold the values that I hold, then I will follow your feed. I'll comment on your feed, I'll friend you. But if you don't, not only am I not going to follow your information, but I'm going to give you bad reviews. And then I'll do the worst thing I can possibly do. I'll unfriend you. The horrors of all horrors, right? Because after all, who can you trust if you cannot trust the people who think, look, and act just like you. Our history is full of tales of tribes that refuse to listen to common sense, refuse to listen from different views, and as a result, atrocities followed. Our own Civil War came about as a result of tribalism. How bad has it gotten? Well, the Pew Research Organization did a poll in 1994 that said 16% of Republicans and Democrats didn't trust each other simply because of the political party they belonged to. Today, that number is almost 43%. I want to show you what that looks like. Let's pretend this entire theater is full of nothing but Republicans and Democrats. Just do me a favor and turn to the person next to you just for a second. Please just turn just for a second. What that means is the person you're looking at right now, statistically, what that's telling you is almost one of the two of you don't trust each other simply because of who you identify with, and for no other good reason. I hear a lot of giggles on that one, don't I? Look, now, none of this is to say that the media is bad, because the news media is not bad. There are some very, very, very good reasons that it holds the protections that it holds under our Constitution, and that is because it plays an extremely important role in keeping us informed. But I will argue that the 24-hour content cycle has abdicated its role as a fair, reasoned arbiter of factual information, and that social media makes matters worse by encouraging damaging tribal behavior. So I'll ask again, what do we do? Well, we can't rely on content companies because they're going to continue to do what they do. And the reason they're going to do that is as long as there are people who are going to their sites, as long as there are advertisers who are willing to pay for that audience, and those content companies make money, they're going to continue to do it. So, as with everything, the solution lies with us. And I think there are some things that we can do. The first thing we can do is fact check. If somebody tells you this is a fact, you can check it. I used to be an editor in a newspaper, and I used to tell my reporters all the time, if your mother says she loves you, ask her to prove it. Believe me, they didn't laugh so much. But really, if somebody gives you a fact, ask them to prove it. And here are some really excellent sources that you can use. Snopes, PolitiFact, FactCheck, the American Press Institution, API.org. They're all excellent, excellent places that you can go to check the facts. 2, check the social network of friends that you keep. Have you ever unfriended somebody because you didn't like what they had to say? Yeah, right? Are your social network of friends diverse in every way, including thought? Remember, change starts with us. And lastly, and this could be the most important thing, become an individual again. Don't be part of the tribe for the tribe's sake. Because you can bet your bottom dollar, if someone tells you something with nothing to support it and nothing to back it up, that they don't know the facts. And if you take away anything from this, please remember this. While everybody is entitled to their own opinion, nobody is entitled to their own facts.